All right, so we're talking about fills here in Illustrator. So to make a fill, we need to start with a simple shape. So you can use a rectangle, for example, and start with a basic rectangle shape. Or you can make your own unique shape in Illustrator. So I can go ahead and use my pen tool if I wanted and trace out this floor. So I'm just going to do a quick shape like this just to demonstrate. So that's, sorry, two ways of creating closed shapes. So now we can select these shapes and add a fill. So we talked briefly about what a fill is, and you can assign a fill a color just by double clicking that square and selecting a couple options here. So now we've made that fill red. But you could, Illustrator comes with a bunch of default fill patterns that you can use. So how can we do that? So we have our object selected, and we can go to Window. Sorry guys, it's been a while actually since I've used Illustrator, so I'm getting used to this again. Okay, I remember now. So you not only have the fill options here to the bottom left of your screen, but you also have several fill options at the top here. So if you select this drop-down menu, you'll see that there's a libraries menu. And by going to that libraries menu, there's a bunch of swatches that you can use. So we can go to example, let's go to patterns and basic graphics. And let's open our lines category. So you'll see here that when I clicked lines, that opened up this library, and it's given me a bunch of different hatch patterns that I can use, or fill patterns. So I can go ahead and select, let's say, this grid, which might be good. And by doing that, I've automatically filled that rectangle with that grid pattern. So if I, for example, went over here and I was careful and traced my floor plate, actually, before I do that, I want to be sure to actually lock all my layers so I don't accidentally drag any points. I'm going to lock the layer except for the layer that I'm working in, and I can just go ahead and trace this. And those of you who aren't familiar with Illustrator, the way I'm zooming in and out right now is by holding the Alt key and using my scroll wheel. So it's similar to Photoshop. All right, so we have that shape, and now I can go back and add a fill to it. So go down to my selection settings, and I'll add that grid pattern. So that's a way you can add, textures and more layers of information to your plans without having to draw every single line itself individually. And there's also a bunch of other patterns, like we have some crazy ones. We have like nature, we can do foliage. Let's see what's in there. We have some green colors. Some of these fills are just more so like color schemes. So if you're a person who hates figuring out a color scheme for a presentation, actually a fun way to kind of just like work through a color scheme is just going into Illustrator and seeing what the different that came from by hovering over the fill option over here. So if I click on the drop down menu and I go to this little icon here, this was my swatch libraries menu. I selected the swatch libraries, and here are all the different options. So I went to nature, and that's where I found foliage. All right, so I'm gonna stop the recording there so we can get started with test crits, but does anyone have